about understand exception hierarchy and how to use try and catch. First of all, what is exception in Java? The dictionary meaning of exception is an abnormal condition. But in Java, an exception is an event that disrupts the normal flow of the program. It is an object which is thrown at runtime. So what happens when exception occur? It just remove the, we can say that it just terminate the natural flow of the program and sends a block of messages where the exceptions comes from and what is the type of exception and why exception comes. So it just disrupts the natural flow of our program. Let's discuss about the hierarchy of Java exception class. The java.lang.throwable class is the root class of Java exception hierarchy, which is inherited by the two subclasses, exceptions and error. Let's discuss about them in detail. Here is the hierarchy of Java exception class. The parent is throwable and the throwable class is divided into two things. The first one is exception and the other is error. Exception is divided into four subclasses, that is IO exception, SQL exception, class not found exception and runtime exception. Then runtime exception is divided into four types, that is arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, number format exception, index.out-of-bound exception, and index out of bound exception is again classified into two types, that is syntax string index out of bound exception and array index out of bound exception. The second part is error, which is three types of error: stack overflow error, virtual machine error and out of memory error. Let's discuss about the try and catch block. First of all, we will discuss about the Java try block. The Java try block is used to enclose the code that might throw an exception. It must be used within the method. Those method or those blocks which seems that it contain an exception, that might contain an exception, this type of statement we will put inside the try block. If an exception occurs at the particular statement of try block, the rest of the block code will not execute. Once an exception occurs, then all the statement which is besides the try block, or we can say that which is next to the try block, only though the statements are not executable, otherwise all the programs are run finally. So it is recommended not to keep the code in try block that will not throw an exception. So we can also say that don't put any statement after the try block, or it is recommended not to keeping the code in try block that will throw an exception. So the Java try block must be followed by either catch or finally block. So after try block, it is recommended to use either the catch block or finally block. We will discuss about the catch or finally block in detail. Let's discuss about the Java catch block. The Java catch block is used to handle the exception by declaring the type of exception within the parameter. We already know that the Java try block is used to is used where we want to keep that type of statement which contains exception. And what type of exception it is catched by the Java catch block. It is used to handle the exception by declaring the type of exception within the parameter. The declared exception must be the parent class exception, that is exception, or the generated exception type. However, the good approach is to declare the generated type of exception. Whatever the exception it seems, we have to just give that type of exception class inside the catch block. All the exception class inside the exceptions, that is throwable, and inside the exception, whatever it is, if it is arithmetic exception, it is array index out of bound exception, null pointer exception, whatever the exception it is recommended that we should give that exception class inside the catch block. Those exception class which seems to be occur, it is the good approach to declare that generated type of exception. The catch block must be used after the try block only. You can add multiple catch blocks with a single try block also. Here is a syntax of Java try block catch. First the try and then the code that may throw an exception. And once the code try block curly braces close, then on the next line it is recommended to use the catch. If we don't use in after the curly braces, then it might show error. And then the exception class name and the reference for it. And inside the curly braces, whatever we want to print, we can print here. Here is the internal working of Java try-catch block. Let's suppose it is the statement that is int data is equals to 10 by 0. We all know that it throws an exception, that is because it is a runtime exception, that is divide by 0. So what happens if an exception object, and inside if it is handle, then the rest of the code is executed and it just simply show the message whatever it is in the catch block. And if it is not handle, then JVM print out the exception description. It prints the stack trace as well as it terminates the program. The JVM firstly checks whether the exception is handled or not. If exception is not handled, then JVM provides a default exception handler that performs the following tasks. It prints out the exception description, it prints out the stack trace, and it causes the program to terminate. But if exception is handled by the application programmer, then normal flow of the application is maintained. That is, the rest of the code is executed as per their norms. So these are the concepts besides the exception hierarchy and the try and catch block. Thank you.